So, there we go. Wasn't that an interesting story? That's the end of the video essay. Don't look at the runtime. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
Hi, I'm Brigitte Empire, a parody journalist in the vein of Philomena Kunk but less funny.
It's almost unbelievable that before Charles Darwin invented evolution in 1859, no one had ever evolved.
Or, if you prefer, some more news, but also less funny and, for some reason, British. I like to pretend on this channel that I work for an organisation called the Daily Telegraph, but I think we all know who I really work for. I work for you. But mostly, because they take the lion's share of my ad revenue, it would perhaps be more honest to say I work for YouTube. Recently, a lot of big YouTubers have been quitting, whether in response to fatigue, artistic burnout, or money issues, or a mix of all of those things and more. I, on the other hand, came into YouTube in an already saturated market, where you can't throw a rock without hitting 5 different leftist video essayists. Nevertheless, I was jumping off the sinking ship of postdoctoral academia, so if you think YouTube is bad at rewarding its workers, imagine where I came from. This is an improvement.
So if you like this kind of research, if you want a real answer to this presentation, which, as you might have noticed, started with a fairly clear-cut question and ended on, I'm still trying to find out, can you give me money? Well, I am looking for a postdoc right now, so...
In the midst of this big wave of goodbye videos, one in particular caught my eye, because it's something that I've been thinking about for a while. Not a quitting video, per se, but one that reflected on that trend, by one of my favourite video essayists, Super Eyepatchwolf. In the video, John Walsh, the man behind the channel, reflected on how his mindset and schedule has changed with regard to making videos, and particularly how the process of making video essays became longer and longer as he got better at the craft.
So I think like what happens when you're doing YouTube videos, right, is you start to slow down. And I'm sure you guys have seen this with like a lot of creators, not just me, but it's like there's creators that, you know, they start and they're making like 4 videos a month or 2 videos a month or 3 videos a month, whatever it is, you know, and they put out a few and they put out a few and they put out a few. And then, all of a sudden, that becomes once a month. And then all of a sudden, that becomes 2 a month. Or that becomes like 1 every 2 months, 1 every 3 months, 1 every 5 months, 1 every 6 months, whatever it is, you know? And I think that happens for 2 reasons. And one is, I think as your brain adapts and understands what it is to make a good video essay, it also starts to become... You start to realize all these ways to make it better, and you start to realize how important research is and how important fact-checking is and how important doing like draft after draft after draft and making sure it's all as tight and concise as possible, and what it is for a joke to land and what a lazy joke is and how to make a good joke and all this stuff. And you gain the knowledge to make the best fucking videos you can make. But what happens then is that you want to do better. But the thing is, now that you have that knowledge to do better, doing better takes much longer. It takes a lot longer to make a YouTube video that's like full of like, you know, that's insightful, that's well researched, that has personality, that has like good comedy, good pacing, good jokes. It's just, if you've never done it, it is such a more difficult thing than you can imagine.
So why are video essays all so long these days? I think I have some answers. Stick with me for a moment, as I take a break in between ruining Star Trek for everyone and procrastinating making multiple videos about Kristen Stewart, to actually do some real-life analysis of this ridiculous website that we all love to hate. The more cynical among you will probably already be typing out some variation of videos are longer because they make more ad money in the comments right now. And sure, if your goal with making videos is to make the maximum possible monetary gain, you're gonna want your video to be long enough to run mid-roll ads on. But that only pushes things up to a point, and it doesn't explain the last few years of video essay length inflation, to the point of the once-a-year 4-hour-long videos we've been seeing from masters of the craft like H-Bomber Guy, Dan Olsen, or ContraPoints. You get mid-roll ads on videos that are 10 minutes long after all. And if you're only making 1 or 2 videos a year, you're not exactly going to be making that ad money consistently all year round. Videos only get pushed by the algorithm for so long before their momentum dies down, most of the time. The algorithm works in mysterious ways. But one of the ways to make sure your stuff stays relevant is to keep making more of it. Shorter but more regular videos will be more likely to yield a reward than one 4-hour documentary most of the time. But would you want to, when you can keep improving something until it's just the way you want it? What stays in your head longer? A multi-hour documentary that's thorough, well-researched, funny, and has a satisfying beginning, middle, and end? Or a 20-minute video that does a lot of stuff well, but can't quite scratch the surface because it just doesn't have the time? In Super Eyepatch Wolf's video, John Walsh talks about how, as his career progressed, he understood more and more of what makes a good video, of how much research to put in, which jokes work and which don't, along with other factors. I think this is the case for a lot of people. Most YouTubers start with fairly short and regular videos, and as they get bigger, they switch to longer, more well-researched, and better edited content as they get better at researching, better at editing, and better at knowing how to make a compelling video in general. During the pandemic, I was watching Thought Slime all the time, on repeat. When I first got into Mildred's channel, if I recall correctly, she was making 2 videos a week. Then she slowed down to once a week, then less. But the videos she was putting out were still all bangers. And the thing is, one of the reasons I got into Thought Slime in the first place was that I was a big fan of YouTubers like ContraPoints, H-Bomber Guy, Lindsay Ellis, and PhilosophyTube. And while PhilosophyTube has managed to keep a bafflingly regular schedule for years, those first 2, well, when we want our fix of that style of content, and there's been no new ContraPoints for... Okay, when I wrote this, it had been 9 months. As of now, it's been a couple of weeks. So, yeah, but pretend that didn't happen. You're gonna look for something to scratch that itch. And that's how smaller YouTubers, like myself, or Hyphenated History, Soul Bunny, Vivian Strange, Lost Futures, Colormine, Babilla, and so on, have a chance to pick up steam. The initial burst of enthusiasm that being a new creator brings, combined with the slowing down of established creators as they focus on bigger and better projects, is, in my opinion, a crucial part of the YouTube ecosystem. And part of the reason for this slowing down is that people can afford to. And by people, I mean the big people. When, like me, you're struggling to make ends meet, you want to put out regular videos often, so you can get a sliver of ad money and build a bigger following on Patreon where, from just £1 a month, you can get exclusive long-form interviews, early videos, access to the members-only Discord, and soon, once I acquire a copy of the movie where disgraced nonce Kevin Spacey plays founder of the Croatian state and a Holocaust-denying war criminal Franjo Tuđman, movie nights. Please don't make me watch the nonce war criminal movie alone. Anyway, if you have over 1 million followers, a loyal patron base, and a bunch of already successful videos that provide a little passive income, you have more of a financial base with which you can justify taking longer with projects to make them better. On top of that, the longer you've been making videos, the more likely you're going to want to try new things, to improve, to keep things fresh for yourself. PhilosophyTube went from egg in front of a bookcase content to big studio set pieces. FD Signify went from man in front of screen in Windows Movie Maker to man in front of screen but with editors. Kat Black's been doing leftist YouTube content longer than pretty much anyone. I've been following her since before I was a leftist and before I knew I was trans. And she's changed her style a bunch over the years. And one of the cool things about making long videos is you can really go in and explore all sides of an issue, in a way you just can't when you've got to wrap up in 20 minutes to get onto the next script. I've even experienced a bit of this slowing down as you improve yourself. Now, before you make any snide comments, remember, good audio is bourgeois. I live next to a main road in the Balkans. You try telling people who lived through the fall of Yugoslavia to slow down. Anyway, when I started this channel back when I was a paleontologist working on mouse anatomy and trying to push out papers on dinosaur feet, I was making 1 to 2 videos a week. Those videos were, for the most part, pretty short. In fact, the first British Empire video I ever made under that name was a PowerPoint presentation that I talked over in my best impression of Philomena Kunk doing riffs about the British monarchy.
Queen Elizabeth II, unelected Boogaloo, is the latest in a long line of very rich people in fancy hats we in England call monarchs, kings or queens depending on their sex. Historically, a queen, usually married to a king, will produce smaller, mini-monarchs, called princes or princesses, the eldest of which is trained their entire life to sit on a big chair and wear an impractical hat. Think of it sort of like a family business for wizards, but somehow even less cool.
In the last year, however, I've switched my editing software 3 times, moved house also 3 times, only once out of my own volition, and I like to think that I've gotten a little better at this, but I obviously still have a ways to go. It's got to the point, however, where I look back at, say, my video on girl boss fascism, and I wish I'd waited until I was better at this whole thing to do it, because I think the concept is too important to have it just sit there as a low quality but amusing mess, with a full 5 minutes of silence at the end because I fucked up exporting the bloody thing.
Move over, blood and soil. It's time for gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss. Ask your local National Front member if fascism for girls could be the right choice for you. From the company that brought you Adolf Hit Her, Benito Mussolini, and Augusto Pinochet Slay. This year, fascism finally comes home, but this time, the future, and fascism, is female.
And the thing is, I know that if I had the time and the financial security, I would love to make a bunch of my videos bigger, better, and with more asides to explore different aspects of a topic. So, just as an example, at the time of writing this, my next project might be, or is planned to be, about how the reactions to Kristen Stewart's lesbian feeding photo shoot in Rolling Stone reveal the cracks in the anti-trans coalition and the ongoing transphobe civil war. This started out as these things usually do. I just wanted to laugh at idiots crying because they didn't get a boner from a magazine cover. Then the gender-critical movement started fighting about it, with the people who arrived at the movement from the political lesbian/radical feminist side arguing with the more traditionally bigoted about whether a woman looking like an obvious lesbian was disgusting or fine, actually. So then I read a bunch of books on political lesbianism, took notes on the anti-trans, anti-kink, and honestly anti-gay rhetoric from that particular branch of second-wave feminism, which led me to realising if I was going to truly do this topic justice, I'd have to reread a bunch of Judith Butler, maybe a bit of Foucault, because all the political lesbians hate Foucault and think he's basically the devil, which... I hate to hand it to them. But then I definitely have to read Janice Raymond's The Transsexual Empire, which is basically the founding text of the modern TERF movement, and no one deserves that. But, okay, we've gone from a 20-minute video laughing at people's reactions to an extremely tame but attractive photo shoot, to an hour-long documentary on the foundations of modern transphobia, the unholy alliance between neo-fascists and second-wave feminists, and the subsequent takeover of the movement by its fascist elements. And how that eventually led to a movement ostensibly made to protect lesbians, screaming, crying, and throwing up at the idea that someone might not look like a heterosexual woman. And then I watched the Tim Pool video where he kept calling Kristen Stewart a greasy drug addict before claiming that conservatives are just more attractive scientifically.
Kristen Stewart looks gross.
And as a scientist, I couldn't let that go. So I started reading, and I started laughing, and I started writing. And then I had to split this into 2 videos. But if I were financially stable and had the confidence to wait a couple of months between videos, a video that covered all of that in one package, that would have the potential to be one of the best and most in-depth things I've ever done. But I can't. I just can't afford to. Not yet, anyway. Whereas bigger YouTubers can take these risks. Take Lola Sebastian's recent video on Lady Gaga's art pop, which, I know it's early, it's only March, but so far, my video of the year. Now Lola's video goes in depth on the album, its background, Gaga and her career leading up to this point, and the multitude of controversies around that album, from Gaga not remembering recording it supposedly, to the cultural appropriation angle, to the song named after a racial slur, to the fucking duet with famous sex criminal R. Kelly, to the themes of the key songs on the album, and just go watch it. No way I could do it justice here. Now, if I were to try and tackle this topic at the size of my channel and with my current financial situation, I'd probably just cover one of those controversies without talking about the album beyond introducing it as a background to the topic at hand, and wrap it up in a 20 to 40 minute video depending on how much writing spews out of my hands at any given moment. The result might be a good watch, it might be a great watch, but Lola's video is one of my favourites of all time. The problem with making these long videos is, of course, that they might be the YouTube video equivalent of the Sistine Chapel if you can get them right, which is a sentence, but they also take fucking forever to make. So if you want to maintain a regular schedule, but make high quality and long form content, you have a couple of choices. The main ones being expand your operation or slow down. If you have money and you want to keep up a regular schedule, one of the easiest ways of achieving that is to hire people. Most big YouTubers have an editor or a co-writer or both. Some of them have entire teams. This is the point where you have to be careful a bit though, and I think one of the reasons a lot of people elect to hire very few people, if any at all, and just massively slow down instead. Because the more people you hire, the more YouTube stops being a creative outlet and starts becoming a business, and you risk compromising your principles or even becoming a content farm. To be honest, that's always a risk of making your hobby into a job, but the less wedded you are to principles, the more you're likely to make sacrifices to your art's integrity in the name of business or reach, often without even noticing it. Take the example of, say, Johnny Harris making a video in partnership with the World Economic Forum on stakeholder capitalism, in the midst of the financial sectors of the world struggling with rising discontent and the risk of rising socialist sentiment in young people. Or Kurzgesagt, which started small and is now a huge team, making multiple videos in partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation with predictably awful results, such as trying to make out the climate apocalypse won't be that bad actually. Now, lots of people have shown that it's actually possible to balance this. FD Signifier, T-Noir, Philosophy Tube, Foreign Man in a Foreign Land, Princess Weeks, all produce very regular content, with Feek producing longer form material than the others most of the time, with help, but not a huge team. It is possible. The other way to keep making regular material is simply to keep it short. Philosophy Tube I mentioned here because her videos tend to be around the 45-minute mark. Now Abby is massive on this platform and works with quite a lot of people for each video, but she rarely ends up producing a multi-hour video like a lot of other YouTubers, and part of this comes down to discipline. It's not necessarily good or bad to have long or short videos, but you can set hard rules for yourself to stick to a certain length. The writers in my audience will have heard this phrase used before in shop talk, but one of the keys to this is to be willing to kill your darlings. Getting rid of ideas, sections of your script, characters in your narrative, anything that you might love, but that aren't necessary, or risk making the project bloated, or just too ambitious for the scope of your project. For a novel, this might mean cutting out a secondary character, or going from 2 points of view to 1. For a video, this might mean cutting out huge sections. Now this can be great for producing really tight, concise content, and we love concise videos. But we also like behemoths. Huge monsters that reach towards every possible tangent. It just depends on what you want to do, and given a lot of video creators have ADHD, like me, we do tend to lose ourselves in tangents and read way too much into areas we might not have even meant to cover originally. The risk with this, however, is that if a video can't justify its length, it goes from the video equivalent of a symphony to a bad prog rock album. Sometimes long just means boring, over-explaining a point, repeating yourself, or even repeating yourself.
So long.
I call this the George R.R. Martin problem, or alternatively, the Stephen King problem, where you stop doubting yourself and expand as your ideas grow. A lot of authors have their output tightly edited. Once you get to a certain size, however, authors have much more leeway over their editors to argue for keeping unnecessary material, and since they're going to sell anyway, editors have much less of an impetus to push back on this. The Stephen King who hadn't yet written Carrie would never have gotten away with the 1,400-page version of The Stand, and not just because the ending is bullshit, and believe it or not, George R.R. Martin's early work is really concise. I love his sci-fi stories. Dying of the Light is a great first novel, and Tough Voyaging is just 10 out of 10. A Feast for Crows is not that. And I'll bet when The Winds of Winter comes out, if it ever does, that its first printing alone will require the felling of an entire rainforest worth of trees. Length is not necessary, and long videos need to justify their length by being compelling. That's not really possible for us that are new at this, but once you're years in, and you know your craft, you know what your audience likes, you can be pretty confident you know when an extra hour of throwing rotten tomatoes at James Somerton is justified. And this is all for the good of the platform. Channels grow in size and quality, and sometimes their output slows down. But just as a shoot becoming a tree leaves room for other sprouts to grow underneath, for shrubs and vines and herbs, when large creators slow down, it means you might just discover your new favourite creator who is still in the early stages of their growth. I hope you will. Until then, thanks for watching.
Long, long
Hey everyone, thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. If you like this video, why not like it, leave a comment, subscribe, and tell your friends about it. I am, unfortunately, quite poor right now, so if you have a few coins burning a hole in your pocket and you hate to see a tramp like me down on the luck, why not help me get out of my massive, horrifying overdraft and send me some money? You can give me one-time donations on Ko-fi or PayPal, links below as always, or better yet, sign up to my Patreon, where you get early videos, access to the members-only Discord, my Nintendo Switch friend code, and exclusive content, such as long-form interviews with Princess Weeks, Rosenkreuz, and Jessie Gender. In addition to all of that good stuff, you'll also, if you sign up, get your name read out at the end of each video, just like these lovely people. Brian, John N., Scully, Jan, Lloyd Luciente, Stephanie, Jason Cribbett, Shield Thaden, Robin Podolsky, Exploding Turtle, Casual Observer, Terry Roberts, Manta Ray, Courtney Burmack, Sleepy Slug, Philippa Tabroga, Belligerent Kitten, Soma Piglet, Brain Douche, Artie Wolf, Hayden Gaylor, Greg Noble, Deanna McMillan, Caroline Regalado, Alexandra Lilly, PJ Lisborough, Howard Lott, Lara Van Loon, Nerania Scarjan, and Joey Cobalt. You guys have helped me so much recently. I talk about being poor on here a lot because I am. I couldn't do any of this without my patrons, so thank you so much for all of you. And anyone who wants to join them, I will owe you the entire world. Oh, also, while you're here, my brother is releasing new music. He's genuinely incredible. Like, he's got a great voice, great talent as a songwriter. You'd like him, like you personally. I know it. If I've met you, yes. If not, also yes. Just look him up. He's Sundile. That's Sundile, wherever music is streamed. And if you go and enjoy what you hear, leave a comment and tell them I sent you. I'll leave a little taster right here so you can, well, have a taste.
んじゃねえよ。え？避けるグミ1袋分並べていくと